This is Ted Shull with Dateline Downtown. I'm here with Juan Hernandez and Joshua Burgman.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Or good afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully, maybe even at night. So,
I'll just say hi. Hi.
We want to welcome y'all to our new experiment, our weekly news roundup, Friday news roundup. We're going to experiment with this today and see how it goes.
we're also experimenting our new setup. What'd you think, Ted?
I think it's awesome.
I just recently purchased these new mic stands, and I gotta say, it's a major improvement from what we were running this thing through last semester.
Yes, we're official now. No more books and clips, and we can make a little bit more noise than we were able to make last semester.
Yeah, and we're still trying to see how if we need to speak directly into the mic or when we're sharing mics, how to speak into it, and it looks like it's going to work out pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So this is our first weekly roundup where we tell you all the news that happened this week, or news, pop culture, as much. But anybody got anything on pop culture? I don't know anything that happened this week in pop culture.
Well, the Oscars.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. The Oscars.
And particularly, Selma got snubbed for an Oscar.
For Best Actor or
Yes.
Best Actress.
Yes.
It got Best Director though.
Yeah, it did.
Oh, they just announced these? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I just I've been out of the loop for a while.
Actually, I have too. I don't know when. I know that they were announced this week, but I don't know when exactly they were. So I know the reason why I know that they were announced is because there's a big deal about it, because I think they said in over, was it like 10 years? It could be a lot longer than that. All the nominees are white, and that is why it was a huge deal this week on the news.
And not only white, because of the pay gap that was discovered due to the Sony hacks, they're also disclosing that women who win an Oscar, it basically does nothing for their salary. But men who win an Oscar, they get an 88% increase in pay immediately following an Oscar win. So that was also interesting.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that at all.
Heard that yesterday on NPR.
And you guys can move this thing around if you want.
Sorry.
If you want to, if you want to, I can move it around, or, it's we learn as we go along.
This is actually kind of interesting. It says 400 U.S. troops are deploying to train Syrian opposition. They will work out of sites in Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Qatar, said a Defense Department spokeswoman. I say it's about time.
Why do you say that?
We're supposed to be bringing the fight to ISIS, and it's just taken a while. I think that if we're going to train the rebels who are fighting ISIS, I think we should start training them.
I agree with that, but then again I don't, because I've been on the fence on the whole training the rebels thing, because I think that we're seeing, especially now with the whole Boko Haram attack in Nigeria, I think we're seeing something here where if ISIS is, let's just say that they're degraded in Syria, what's supposed to happen next after that? Because you still have the Syrian civil war going on.
Of course.
And, that's going to be the next issue that we're supposed to handle in Syria. So, how much are we supposed to do over here? And then, you also have to think about if we train the rebels and they take down Bashar al-Assad, okay? After that happens, then what's next? Because someone has to fill that vacuum. Like I said, like we're seeing in Nigeria, sometimes it's better for these leaders that we don't like so much to be there, because, after
like Saddam Hussein.
Like Gaddafi, after he was taken down, now you have all this all these weapons being introduced into Nigeria through Chad, through Saudi Arabia, through Cameroon, all of these places. So if
It's
they
a valid point. I just think that if the U.S. is going to get involved, they should do it, and train the rebels that have been vetted.
But we already are involved. So how much more involved do
We're
we have
involved
to be?
in the air campaign, which is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing like 15 to 20 airstrikes a day, which is nothing.
Okay.
Compared to this. I mean, the territory under ISIS command is so large. I don't think they can effectively destroy ISIS without some kind of troop involvement.
So then
And I don't think the U.S. should be fighting, but I do think they should be training these rebels who are vetted.
And that's what these soldiers that are sent over there now are
Yes.
supposed to do, to train them.
Yes.
And then what happens when one of these soldiers gets killed? Are we supposed to get involved with extra boots on the ground?
Yeah, that's a valid point.
The situation, it's sticky. The Syria thing is very sticky, and the situation is just very sticky. And right now, I don't know what sending more troops is going to do to make any huge impact, especially 400 troops. What is that going to do at all?
Yeah. Well, if they're Green Berets, that's their specialty. Is, training indigenous forces. They act as force multipliers. But it is definitely a valid point that if one of the American soldiers gets kidnapped or killed,
if they hit their toe on the door, you're going to have congressmen, from both parties screaming that,
but
we
you
need
already
extra.
have congressmen screaming because they're not there.
Yeah.
Like McCain, for instance.
But then where does that leave us, though? Are we so that, like, what does that leave us? That's why I hate this whole gray area when it comes to the U.S. in situations like this, because what does that leave us? Over there forever? Like, this is why these people hate us now.
It is.
This is why they attack, this is why some of the reason 9/11 happened, us being involved too much, our footprint is too big.
I do think that we were talking earlier about the terrorist attacks in France, and anything that we do, I believe, should be multilateral. No more unilateral action like Iraq. We need a coalition. If we get our partners involved, I believe that's the only way we can go forward. I just don't believe we should go it alone, because that is what people hate about U.S. action.
I hear that, but it's like, what's the end result?
Well,
They continue fighting. I mean, we've seen it. How long has this been going on? For years. This is nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, they've been fighting left and right, and we're gonna pull the troops back, and then they send them back again, and so it's you could say it never ends, but hopefully it has to come down to an end somehow. This is just
And
my input.
now
so to
you
speak.
have a really interesting situation in Iraq, and especially in Syria. Al Qaeda and ISIS are actually killing each other. They're fighting each other. So
That's interesting.
Yeah.
They're fighting each other.
they are.
Well, actually, one of my my Mideast history professor here, Dr. Jose Alvarez, that was one of his things that he said all year long. It's actually been seen throughout history, when Muslims aren't fighting people on the outside world, they're fighting each other. So it's not, there's no end run around that. That's gonna always be the case. If they're not fighting someone outside of the Muslim world, they're going to be fighting each other. And right now, ISIS and Al Qaeda are fighting to see who's the biggest badass in the Middle East.
There was an interview on NPR yesterday by a British, I forget his last name, but he's the founder of this British think tank called the Quilman Group, and he's a former radical turned anti-radical. Now he's writing and trying to produce a message to de-radicalize.
Mm-hmm. I think I know who you're talking about. I think I saw this last night.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And he said that the biggest schism is between these different radical groups. They hate each other more than they hate us. Mm-hmm. And I found that interesting.
But why was that? Why did he say that they hated each other more than they hate us? I find that hard to believe.
Because to radicalize to that extent where you are willing to blow yourself up and take others with you, you have to have a very strong set of beliefs. And while they may agree on martyrdom, they have different reasons on why it should be done. And it was very interesting what he said. He said that their fundamental disagreement is about it's basically the tribal level, down to the tribal level, tribal customs. And that's something that a lot of Americans just don't grasp. Mm-hmm. We don't think in those terms.
That actually is very true. And in his, I think it's 2013, 2014 memoir, Secretary of Defense Bob Gates said that in his book. He said that what a lot of people didn't understand, and what the U.S. Army didn't understand when we first went into Afghanistan, is that these tribes pretty much run the country, and that you weren't going to get anything done unless it was through them. Without their cooperation, there was no way that you were going to get these things done. So that is true. There is a lot of there's a lot of background to it that people don't really understand. That's extremely important because something like that is because these people are directly involved in what happens in these countries.
You also got to understand, these people have been living in the Stone Age for a very long time, and just based on what I've seen, we've tried to make progress, as a nation, as far as the troops being there and helping out, but I wouldn't say it's big progress. Yeah. It's very minimal at the most, and a lot of people don't understand that. These people not only are hating each other right now, but they hate us too, and they fail to see that they don't want to see us succeed. In other words, us or maybe any other nation that's growing like China, stuff like that. They just fail to see the big picture, and hey, if they want to continue living that way, so be it. You can only convince somebody so many times.
Exactly.
Try to convince them.
Well, that's true. Okay, so that is true, but I guess I'll play devil's advocate here, because that is what the problem is, that we're always trying to convince them to be like us. When they're probably happy being the way that they are. Yeah. There are some tribes in like Papua New Guinea and stuff like that in the rainforest that freak out when they see an airplane fly overhead. So that's that's Americans' big deal, wanting people to be like us. A lot of people don't want to be like us. So I can't.
And even as Americans, as a nation, we have a lot of people say, well, we have so much going on here in the U.S. Why are we? A lot of people don't understand. You're always going to have people that are misinformed and ignorant people that are just, they're not, I guess you could say, hip to what's going on as far as international relations go. And
speaking of that, okay, and since we're on this topic, because I was very disappointed in mass media this week, since we were talking about terrorism and all of that good stuff right now. we touched earlier when we first started talking about Boko Haram. So, what was it, like January 3rd? It said that Boko Haram went into the cities of Baga and Doran Baga, or Twin Baga, and completely decimated it. So they had Amnesty International release these infrared photos that showed the devastation before and after the attacks. The Nigerian government is claiming that only 150 citizens were killed, and Amnesty is reporting that it's more like 2,000, which if you take a look at these photos, I would say the 2,000 estimate is probably more accurate. And the thing about that is that, so you had this happen where 2,000 people were killed. John Kerry came on saying that it was crimes against humanity, and that this is outrageous and all this good stuff. Yet not one major media corporation covered it to the extent that it should have been covered.
And you know what? Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan issued a statement saying "Je suis Charlie," but he would not speak about these deaths in his own country.
That's what was crazy to me. Okay, so not to diminish what happened in Paris, because it was terrible. 17 people died, but I'm sorry, 17 people, 2,000 people.
Of course,
there's no comparison whatsoever there. So my brother said, well, it was 17 white people. So what are you supposed to do? I mean, it's 17 people over 2,000 people, and I don't understand why we don't feel like this is big news. Like, this should be all over the news.
They were actually talking about that last night. The logistics of hunting Boko Haram, and they said that even with all these satellite images, it's just impossible to track such a vast area. But Cameroon, on the other hand, which is right next door to Nigeria, has been able to catch Boko Haram leaders.
I think that's crap anyway, because I mean, you have
now Nigeria is a big ally of the U.S., very strong ally,
right?
But
a questionable one.
Yes. Why don't they take this fight? Why don't they publicize this information and ask for help?
Well, okay, so I was watching Democracy Now! This morning, and Professor Horace Campbell from Syracuse University was on there, and he made a good point. There is a lot of oil in Nigeria, 40 billions of dollars worth. I think it's like 10,000 barrels of oil that come out of Nigeria a day, and the U.S. has been trying to find ways to get to that oil along with other countries, and the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people just aren't allowing that. And so his theory was it's best to just keep up hostilities in Nigeria, or at least just not pay attention to it, to kind of keep a blind eye on what's going on behind the scenes. Because, I mean, quite frankly, the U.S. talks about how bad this is, but, I mean, we know who's financing Boko Haram, and, nothing is said about that. The Chad is selling missiles to Boko Haram. So this is a huge money-making organization for the West and for people, outside of Nigeria. So, they probably don't even want Boko Haram to go away, because it's so lucrative financially. And the fact that they're not covering it is kind of speaks to that. I mean, and to quote John Kerry today on Democracy Now!, he talks about how Boko Haram, quote, Boko Haram represents a threat to all of our responsibilities regarding terrorists and terrorism. He says that the events in Paris underscore it. There are different scales, obviously, because Boko Haram is on a much larger scale than what happened in Paris. But he's saying this, and the U.S. isn't doing anything. No one's talking about it.
And interesting. Speaking to that point, I believe it was last month, late December, Israel was going to sell 20 Cobra attack helicopters to Nigeria. obviously U.S. technology.
Right.
And U.S. still has control of who can receive that technology. And the U.S. State Department denied the sale.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, they would not allow Israel to sell that technology to Nigeria because of so-called human rights abuses.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wonder how.
Now, maybe because of this attack, they'll revisit it, but who knows?
But I mean, what are those helicopters going to do to, Nigerian government isn't trying to do anything.
No.
So.
I wanted, on the topic of free speech.
Yes. I also want to mention that too. I don't know what you're gonna
You go ahead.
talk about, but they were talking about the whole cartoon. They haven't been paying much attention to, which I probably should. It's a bad job on my end, but it's just another one of those things where free speech is getting attacked for, what just happened with the whole cartoon thing. What is that? What was that called again?
Charlie Hebdo.
Okay, that's right. I've only seen the name around the internet, but we're getting to a point where, I really don't know. I mean, you saw the consequences of this. It's a cartoon. You have the right to, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and whatnot. But had this happened maybe 10, 20 years ago, you probably would have not heard of anything like this. And for people to react how they did, I mean, you are going to have people that are going to do these types of things, they're willing to get killed nonetheless. So that's the damage will be done regardless.
I am in agreement with you on this, and I am, hey, je suis Charlie, all of that. But like we were saying earlier, I was talking to Ted about this, and I feel very strongly about this. I know this may sound a little weird, but as a journalist, this will sound a little weird, but I don't believe in provoking people, and that is what cartoons like the Charlie Hebdo cartoon did. I mean, it's their profit. What if someone, put Jesus in a negative light? I understand
which Charlie Hebdo does.
Yeah, that's true. And I understand free speech. But, hey, even the Pope, while he was in the Philippines, talked about how, you should not degrade other people's religions. Religion is very sacred I do not mess with religion when it comes to people. Yeah. And those cartoons, free speech though it may be, they're very provocative.
They are.
Now, I have a question now. Does that fall into... And I know you were saying religion is sacred and this and that, and not disregarding that, but do you think sometimes people take these things a little too serious?
Religion?
No, not religion, but a cartoon,
Depiction.
just in general. Like I wouldn't say like you were saying religion. I'm not talking about religion, but just certain things in general that this is an outrage, and it's like it's just.
And I want to be clear, from the commentary and analysis I've heard, nothing in the Quran states that you cannot depict the Prophet Muhammad.
That is true. Nothing in the Quran states that, but it is supposed to be against Islamic law.
Yes.
And the thing about that is, you can go back centuries and you would not find pictures or depictions of the Prophet Muhammad at all. And if you do, his face is covered. So, okay, my mom is a very religious person. My mom is extremely religious. Well, no, I wouldn't say extremely. I guess you have to be careful with using the word extreme these days. She's not an extremist.
Yes.
My mom wouldn't blow anything up. But she loves God and she loves Jesus. And if you talked about them around her, she'd probably cut you. And so, I mean, that is how she was raised. I mean, I was brought up in the church. I went to church, oh my God, sometimes every day of the week. And yeah, so really, like religion to some people, it's life and death, man. Like it is, and I think they prove that with having no problem with blowing themselves up and no problem with taking other people out with them, thinking that hey, if I kill all of these people in the name of Allah, I'm gonna be welcomed in paradise, and I'm gonna have all these virgins waiting on me, and so when it comes to religion, people are extremely sensitive, especially in the Islamic community. So to provoke them in this manner, and then to know the type of reaction that you can gain from it is
this same former Islamist who's now the head of this Quilman Institute in Britain. He said that Islam, the Quran was written in medieval times, which was obviously a very violent period in human history.
right.
But Quran, nothing in the Quran makes it a religion of war or a religion of peace. It's the interpretation. Just like the Bible talks about, especially the Old Testament, very violent things.
Right.
You know, you need to look at them with a modern interpretation. And many Muslims are looking at it as strict interpretationists.
Very close-minded,
Yeah.
to say the least. I mean,
Yes.
you have to, like you're saying, you have to
Yeah.
have an open mind about it.
Yeah.
And you know, some people do take these things a little too serious, to the point where you have things like you were saying, Joshua. People are sensitive about religion and stuff like that. But you know, other people just there are some people out there that just jump on the bandwagon, and you know, they protest these type of things, and they necessarily have no knowledge of you know, whatever the outrage is, whether it's, you know, some cartoon about Jesus or the Bible or whatever you may be. I'm just, you know, that's just the way I'm looking at it, based on everything that's gone down with all these protests, you know.
Well, that's true. That's true. But the protests are in light of the attacks, right? So the people who committed these attacks are not bandwagon people. These are people, and you know, when you talk about them looking at the Quran and going by the strict interpretation, the Quran is considered the word of God. So how can you interpret that other than what it says? If God, you know, I'm just, you know, thinking of someone who's, you know, trying to think that way. If this is what God is saying, how can I interpret it any different than what I see?
Well, the vast majority of Muslims are nonviolent.
Yeah.
So, you know, they obviously have a different interpretation.
Right.
A more modern, I mean, just like the Bible, you know, we have to look at it in the context of the time in which it was written. I think that people take the Bible out of context as well. I don't know. That's my opinion.
And for everybody listening out there, this isn't, you know, we're just talking about, you know, what's been going on. This isn't to turn off anybody. Oh, they're talking about the Bible, this and that. No, it's just having a conversation about, hey, if you want to tune out, go ahead. But no, I want to suggest you do that. But it's something that's ongoing, and you know, it's very important for people out there to know that, you know, like, and we mention this all the time, you know, don't just go based off what Shepard Smith says on Fox News, or because it's always gonna lean towards one side or the other. You know, it just you know, John Boehner said this today, or it's just okay, move on. But
there was some. I'm sorry, Juan. You finish.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the let's see how those are looking. That turnout. I saw a picture of that turnout that they had. What was it, in France? I forget how many people were there.
3 million
like
people.
3 million people.
3 million people.
You know, that's a prime example of a I guess you would say a nonviolent form of protest. And you know, that goes on to show you have cases like in the case of Ferguson and this and that. You know, you have the right to protest. You have the right to show up at this turnout or whatever, and just do it in a timely fashion, in a orderly fashion. You know, there's no need to be burning down businesses in your own neighborhood. It's not gonna. It only makes things worse. And
okay, I have to touch on that. because
don't touch on it too much. Go ahead.
because you bring in Ferguson as a reference, but
yes,
is anyone familiar with the riots that took place after the defeat of Ohio State?
Yes.
How much news did that get?
Yeah.
Over 80-something buildings were burned and destroyed, and not one person got arrested that night. So, if we're going to talk about Ferguson, let's talk about the juxtaposition there, because that is outrageous.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned that, too. I completely forgot about that. I heard about that the other day, and I'm like...
You know why you forgot about it? No one talked about it in the news. That's why you forgot about it.
That's why. And I never knew about it. And I sat there thinking, I'm like, man, like, how do we accept this? How is this acceptable in this society? And that's where, you narrow it down to that. It's like, do we accept those types of things as a society? I guess, people want to cover what they want to cover. Just to...
But then it's like, okay, but then that's where you go to... the whole thing about the media demonizing black people. Mm-hmm. That one building, that AutoZone or whatever it was that burned in Ferguson, I saw that thing on every major news outlet for hours the night that it happened. Ohio State, 86 buildings burned. I saw not one picture on not one single media outlet, social media, nothing. Not even blogs.
I saw one on Facebook, but
the major news was that Ohio State won. That's about it.
But see, that's crazy, because you're right. Like, how do we accept that? No one covered that. And that's not news that, all of these people that were, and then they'll say, oh, well, they're just sports enthusiasts. You're that enthusiastic about sports that you burn down 80 buildings?
Much less kill somebody. That's insane.
The fact that no one got arrested, the fact that no one got arrested is what was truly insane about that. Mm-hmm. Not one person.
Same outcome, different circumstance, but same outcome. You're burning down a building, you're destroying private property. It's just because your team won.
But the outcome was completely different, though. How many? There were tons and scores of people that got arrested in Ferguson. Mm-hmm. The outcome was completely different.
I guess I meant to say the not the outcome, but the
cause.
Yeah, well, not the cause either, because that too was different. I meant to say the, what do you call it? Same actions. Yeah. Different consequences. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, so we would say same actions, no consequences on one part, and tons of consequences on the other.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Ohio State won. That's on one side.
I guess so. Ohio State won.
And it wasn't this was like a college football. It wasn't like NFL or anything like that. So you could just imagine when it goes on during the Super Bowl or an NBA championship.
Well, I used to live in Columbus, Ohio for 5 years, and they don't have an NFL team, and they are pretty die-hard fans.
Would you have been rioting?
No, of course not.
Are you sure? Yeah. If you were there, you wouldn't have participated, not one bit.
Maybe if I went to Ohio State, yeah.
You wouldn't have thrown a trash can, nothing like that.
Maybe if I went to Ohio State.
Now that we're talking about sports real quick, I quickly want to mention to you guys, if you guys heard the news about Manny Pacquiao signing to fight Floyd Mayweather.
I saw that. Predictions?
Jeez, it's knowing Mayweather, he can not sign to fight him, but he's holding out for a reason. It's either because he just doesn't want to fight him because he in his mind he knows he's gonna beat Pacquiao, or maybe he's just those last two fights he had, it looks like time's catching up on him. He hasn't been on his best performance as of late. He's won both fights, but I wouldn't say as to when he fought like De La Hoya or anybody else, or Juan Manuel Marquez.
If he's holding out, I'll say it's probably for money. His name isn't Money Mayweather for nothing. I'd say money. Because, like you said, he probably knows he'll beat Pacquiao. And I think everyone probably knows that, even Pacquiao.
Yeah, this fight should have happened a long time ago. I mean, he's in the same position as Mayweather. It's I think he's about 36 as well. And you know, when you're getting up there in age as a boxer, it's tough. You see a guy like Bernard Hopkins, he's like 50 years old, and he's still boxing to this day. I think he has one more fight left in him, but it's if it does end up happening, you know, it might always go in favor of Mayweather. It always has, even when it shouldn't have. But you know, I personally, you know, I like him as a performer. You know, I don't like him. The way he can carry himself the way he wants to, arrogant and this and that. I just don't. I'm always gonna root for the underdog, and in this case, meaning Manny Pacquiao. So, I hope that he signs, and you know, I would love to see Pacquiao beat him. Mayweather's undefeated, so I think he's trying to hold on to that as well.
Well, I guess we'll wait and see on that. Yeah. On domestic issues, Obama this week did the whole college thing for free college for students, free tuition. Juan seems excited about that.
Is that applied to like universities, or is that just like community college?
That is just community college, and it's a 2-year college. So basically, they want to pay for you to get your basics.
Yeah.
If you want to say it like
your
that.
Associates.
Yeah, your associates. Did it include technical schools?
Yes.
I think it did. Yeah.
Yes.
It included technical schools, and apparently we're going to find out how he intends to pay for this, because it's an estimated $60 billion over 10 years that the federal government is supposed to pay. The state is supposed to be paying 75%, scratch that. Federal government 75%, state is supposed to pay the rest of the 25% of the cost. And we're supposed to be finding out his State of the Union is this coming Tuesday, right? This coming Tuesday, and we'll be finding out after the State of the Union, when he releases his budget, which is actually supposed to be on time this year, how much room we have to pay for this and what we're going to do to pay for this, because people have no idea where this money is going to come from. It's great news, though.
Yeah. As college students, I quickly want to go around and, you know, get your guys' opinions about this. I'm sure you've seen it all over your Facebook feeds and your social media feeds of how people feel about this. Yeah. And Ted, what are your thoughts on this big move it is a big move by Obama?
My opinion is that more education is always better. It increases tax revenue for states. It increases earning power. It increases lifetime earnings. Just 2 years of college increases lifetime earnings by like $2 million. And if you have those first 2 years of community college paid for, that means you only have to pay for 2 to get a bachelor's, to transfer to a 4-year university. So I think more education is always better. What I find very interesting, though, is we have a pushback right now with the states, especially here in Texas, with the Texas Dream Act, which was signed into law by Republican Governor Rick Perry, allowing undocumented students who complete high school here in Texas to pay in-state tuition, which Perry rightly thought, in my opinion, would boost the economy of the state. As we know, our school is a minority-serving institution, and we have friends who this is going to affect greatly.
Right.
So I think it's very interesting that you have Obama, on one hand, trying to bring education to all, but then you have new governors coming in many states, not just Texas, who are trying to say, no, we don't want these people to get an education.
Are most of these governors Republican governors?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. And not only that, Tea Party.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, there's your answer right there.
Yeah.
That's the answer right there to that question.
But my thing is, what's wrong with more education? How does more education harm a state?
Because it's expensive. And if you think about most of these, if you think about most of these senators and these Republicans that are, or I'm sorry, the governors that are pushing for less education, most of these people's children go to private school. Why would they care about anything related to public school? They pay for their children to go to school and to get a good education. So I mean, why are they really concerned about public school? I mean, people say public school is dying anyway. That's not true. They're just not putting the money into it like they should be. And then especially when you see things like standardized tests, which clearly don't work. When I first started college, my major was actually education. And I still love education very much, and I wish that they would just let teachers teach how they used to, but they don't. But I mean, hey, as far as finances are concerned for public schooling, I think that's because the people that are making the policy don't care anything about public school because they don't attend public schools, and their children probably never will. Their kids' probably never will.
But specifically about immigrants going to college.
Mm-hmm.
A good thing, a bad thing?
I mean, it's a good thing for that person. It's just in terms of just saying, yeah, it's a good thing for that person.
But it also would boost their earning power, which in turn would bring in more tax revenue for each individual.
That's true, but then how does that benefit the state if it's an undocumented worker? How far?
As we talked to, as Isaac Valdez mentioned on this program a couple months ago, he said that a lot of people think immigrants do not pay taxes, and he said that is completely untrue. He said not only do they pay taxes, they don't get any kind of refund. All of their withholdings disappear into the system.
Right. Well,
it's obviously a very and like Ted was mentioning, I'm in the same train of thought. More education. It's who's it gonna hurt?
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about people all the time, especially people who are undocumented immigrants. They reach a point where they can't move forward. They're just stuck in a rut, just in the same menial job, menial labor job, and you can't move ahead because you don't have you can't go through the proper channels because of this or that. And it's I believe we do need more education in this country because it's only going to help our economy.
Well,
whether if it's in the medical field, fields that are always in demand, and you can only have so many artists out there in Hollywood. You hear about people all the time, and I actually talked about this to my relative that I interviewed this past week. I'm all good, and I'm sure we're all good on people, chasing their dreams and this and that. But you also have to be very realistic as to where you're coming from in terms of location, circumstance. You have to get yourself together. And whether that's advancing through technical school or going to college or, just whatever to get. I'm sure everybody wants to make good money and doing what they love doing, whether it's a craft or a trade or something that you need a degree to get in with. And that's the thing too, you hear about people, I just remember this, about schools eliminating their fine arts programs and just programs that children need. You have your basic math and this and that, but you also need other things like music and just anything having to do with the arts. You never know. Something good might come out of that. You just never know.
Well, I guess, so going back to what we were talking about with undocumented workers, I guess that was my question, because you said that they get frustrated because, they get stuck in a rut because they get stuck in these menial labor jobs, right? So I guess my question is, by being able to get a college education but remaining undocumented, how does that help them advance? I'm not saying that I don't want undocumented workers to get an education, or because that's not it at all. But I'm asking, how does that help them advance if they get a college education but then remain undocumented?
It might help them advance through their job. I mean, as far as getting
higher skilled visa,
and having their employers work with them as far as getting legalized as residents, and and from there you could just go to become a U.S. citizen. And I guess if that answers your question, it can help through your employer. Your employer is going to see that, and they're going to say, well, this individual, is doing all this effort to get to where he or she wants to get, further in life. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes to help him.
In a labor job? If I have an employer where I'm picking strawberries somewhere,
no,
they're gonna care about me getting a college education?
No. If you have a college education and you start working with a company, now because of the DREAM Act, many of these college graduates are able to get an initial work permit. And then once they get that initial work permit after graduating college, then they get sponsorship in a higher skilled job. And it eventually can lead them to a track to U.S. citizenship.
So then it's not only just Texas governors then that are, trying to roll this back, because it was this week, right, that Republicans put out legislation that would repeal most of what Obama did by executive action in 2014, and also what he did with the DREAM Act in 2011 and 2012, right? It would affect all those people.
Yes.
It can be a bit of a slippery slope when it comes to these types of things, but
they're trying to repeal benefits given to parents of children born here.
Oh, okay.
Things like that.
Okay.
But one of the things I wanted to say about education and immigration is that one of Republicans' loudest arguments about immigration is that they don't assimilate, they don't speak the language, they don't learn our culture. And I think the best way for an immigrant to do that is through education, especially higher education.
I guess just the way that Republicans are carrying themselves through this. I guess the way they carry out their initiatives and all that. Oh, you don't speak the language. Well, instead of saying it like that, maybe you can help them and say it in a, you need to learn English to be able to,
Yes.
I mean, you have to learn English in the United States, whether you're coming from Mexico or anywhere around the world. And if you don't know English, you can't move forward. You just can't. That's the reality. You just can't. I mean, my dad, when he got to the U.S., he didn't know any English, so he had to go to school and take these intensive writing classes, because it's not just about learning basic English. It's about learning the nouns, the verbs, and like it says on his certificate from HEC from, I believe it was 2000. He completed the intensive writing portion of the program, because that's what it takes. It takes a lot of effort, and it's not easy by anybody's standards. It might be easy for us who are born pretty much speaking English, but it's not easy. It can be hard to I mean, it can be easy to say, you know, hey, it's easy if you do this, but you know, it's not as easy as you may think, and it does take a while, but necessarily you do need that foundation before moving forward.
Right.
Before actually obtaining that college degree, you know, it's a lot of, I guess, a lot of things that you have to look at before moving forward.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys have any more
No.
news before we close out.
We would be a little irresponsible if we did not talk about oil prices. Oil prices right now, I think a barrel of oil is like $46.25 nation.
Man, I've been filling up my car with $25. I'm pretty happy right now.
Yeah, me too. I am pretty excited about that. Today I got gas for $1.79. And I honestly never thought that I would see gas be $1 ever again. I never
think
thought
anyone
that.
did.
And
Any layperson.
Yeah, and to see it come down to $1.79, like I am, you know, almost run off the road when I see those prices.
No, don't do that because they're gonna keep going down.
So far
Yeah.
OPEC has decided to continue to produce oil. Saudi Arabia is not playing when it comes to its market share, and you know, things like fracturing and all of that are making oil so easy to get now that, you know, hey, it's all about producing, and now we've just come to a point where there's so much that, you know, it's more than what we need right now.
A lot of people don't know this, but the U.S. is the world's #1 exporter.
Yes. And we got that
Yes.
title last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we became #1 after Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, before Canada last year. Last year was Canada. And now we are the #1 exporter, and you know, we're becoming less and less dependent on foreign oil.
Which is, of course, a good thing.
It is.
But as an exporting country,
Right.
especially an exporting city,
Mm-hmm.
Houston, low oil prices have a negative impact.
Speaking of that, was
Yes.
it last night?
Yeah.
What Schlumberger released, or Schlumberg, the company Schlumberg, energy company, announced that they are letting go of 9,000 employees, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. I remember when I remember seeing it last night when it came on Channel 2. It was actually breaking news that they announced that they were going to let 9,000 people go. This is just the beginning of the bleed that we're going to see from energy companies because of low oil prices. They are going to try to find a way to cut costs, and by doing that, the first thing you do is cut employees.
Actually, from a friend of mine that I know from Ronald McDonough House that volunteers with me, he actually works for I think it's they work in conjunction with the oil companies. I think they manufacture products for them and stuff like that. And he was telling me, this was like around December, early December. He was telling me, man, it's business, it's not good right now. I think he was telling me they were going to lay off a lot of people into the new year because of the same thing. You know, you see these gas prices going down. There's not so much demand anymore for outer companies. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, you know, it's not, when gas prices go down, it doesn't work in favor for them. And when they're skyrocketing, hey, they're on the clock. But I mean, like everything else, it's good and bad at the same time. So there's nothing. Yeah. And for all the people that were saying before, you know, oh, there's, you know, the oil's running out. No oil's running out. I mean, there's plenty of oil around in the world. So.
There's actually more than enough. It's funny that he says that business isn't so good, because some of the problem is that business is booming. And so that's why, you know, we have way too much oil, which is crazy. Who would have thought we'd be saying that?
After the years of the 70s oil embargoes and all this oil crises, it's amazing. I mean, the world is awash in oil today.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't think anyone would ever thought they would have said. And you know, that's the problem. Business is a booming, baby, especially for these people who are finding it. But oil producing nations, especially in the Middle East, are are trying to protect that. And I have to say I get Saudi Arabia in this respect, because they're saying, hey, why the hell should we stop producing oil when, to even out the prices, when you can do the same thing?
Sure.
We won't stop until you stop. They think, hey, well, we can handle it. We'll be able to take that blow, better than you guys will. And right now they're playing chicken, so we'll see. These energy companies and countries are playing chicken with the prices, and we'll see what happens. For us, it's good news, though.
Probably the biggest loser is Russia.
Yeah. That's so true, and especially because Russia is really getting it bad now in terms of oil, especially because I think in Europe they used to be the number one exporter of oil to other countries now, but now you have all of these other countries that are buying oil and gas and things like that from different countries in Europe besides Russia, which is really, really, really screwing with Russia. That's not helping them at all. So, but I mean, that's good for us. And I say, hey,
it is.
The people that it affects the most is us, college students, because let me tell you, going between work and school and home and work and school and home, and I travel a lot for work, these $1.79, $1.64 prices, I'm loving it. I don't think this is the best Christmas present, New Year's, whatever I've had in a really long time, because the money that I'm keeping in my pocket is a little ridiculous.
A lot of news happening that I've just been out of the loop. I have to get back in the loop. But do you have any other news out there that people might want to know about?
No, I think let's wrap this up. Let's keep them tuned for next week.
I like this new format that we're trying out, this weekly roundup. We're still gonna have our interviews and such relating to UHD. And again, this weekly roundup can also relate to UHD in a lot of ways. Yeah. So
actually, if you are listening to our weekly roundup and there are things that you want us to discuss or talk about, you should comment. Let us know what you think we missed. What you'd like to hear more of, what you didn't want to hear so much. Let us know so we can add it into it.
Right, and the websites are datelinedowntown.com. There you'll find a Facebook page, Twitter handles at the Dateline, and the YouTube channel, Dateline Downtown. All the episodes will be up there. I'm gonna try to figure out and see if there's any way I can split the interviews with the weekly roundups, or maybe just start this one off as episode 1 of the weekly roundup and move on from there. There's a lot of things happening for Dateline Downtown. Yeah,
that's true. I think this one was a little longer than we wanted it to be, but that's okay.
No, but that's fine, because with a podcast, I mean, you can just run up to. And this is just it's a test run, but this could be considered our first episode.
Yeah, that's true. This is number 1. This is number 1. What was it? Issue 1 of volume. We're in volume 54 of Dateline, right? Okay. So yeah, stay tuned, guys.
Excited to start off a new semester and a new year.
Oh yeah, and we have plenty of guests lined up for our interview portion of the podcast, and the weekly roundup will continue. Most likely we'll be releasing these every Friday or Saturday, so people can have like ourselves, have a grasp on what's going on for the whole week.
Yeah, this is we want this to be a go-to place for you to get all of your news throughout the week without all the BS, and we'll try to keep as little BS as possible in all of them.
As little Shepard Smith as possible.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
thanks guys for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next